Are you ready for this brand breakdown? Today, I'm going to be looking at this artisan right here and having a look at what they're doing with their colors, a little bit of ideas with brand and possibly marketing. So let's jump in. This artisan is Sue and she's from Spindle and Spool and she's based over in WA. And Sue's kind of doing what I guess we see a lot of artists are doing, where they've got their own website, she's got her socials, and then she's also selling through Made It. And so whether or not that's Made It or it's Etsy or whatever that looks like for you, but it's really about finding the balance to make sure that your brand is recognizable in all three places. Now, Sue, when I go through to your website, first up, I think it's very clear, your colors come through really strongly, that moss green, the warm tones, the beiges. And then when I go through to your socials, I think that it drops off a little bit. And so what I would suggest here is really thinking about how could you give those two places a little bit of alignment. If we're using your website kind of as like the core and the heart and the soul of what you're doing, and then making sure that your grid on Instagram has got that feel, and then also that your Made It store has got that feel as well. Now, your product photography is beautiful. So first up, I love your composition with what you're doing with the images. I think that works really well. But one thing that I would try and do is to actually create a little bit of space in your socials. And that could be where you're, say, having, alternating posts or something where it's got a little bit more of a brand feel rather than just about product. And, hot tip, the Canva 2 Masterclass, we dive into that a lot deeper as well. But I think even with your highlights, your stories that you've got up at the top and having those highlight reels that you've got there, that's where you could bring those colors in. Maybe it's the moss green that you're using, or it's the cream or the tan tones, but that could be a way to bring it in. Now, with your logo, it's really interesting because, on your website, it's sitting on top of the green linen and that natural fiber. And of course, when we shrink that logo down really little to be for your socials, it can be harder to bring in a color. But I just wonder whether it's worth playing with kind of having one of those maybe green tones and maybe the cream writing on top. It's always, the opposites, the darker background with the lighter font, or the lighter font with the darker, lighter background with the darker font could work really well. But all over, you are so on the right path, but I think that there's subtle tweaks that you could be doing to really bring it forward as well and get that brand shining through.